Are you overwhelmed by your sourdough discards? Do you find sourdough discards wasteful? Then you have come to the right place, because I would love to introduce you to my signature sourdough method where you'll never have to do another discard anymore and you don't have to do feedings. I have a lot of sourdough videos on my channel and I get so many questions all the time that I'm going to answer in this video, particularly about this signature sourdough method of mine. And if you're new here on my channel, my name is Anya and I absolutely love geeking out about sourdough. I could talk about sourdough all day long, which I'm not going to do in this video, but you get the idea here. For this video, I'm assuming that you already have an active sourdough starter. If for some reason you are here and you don't have an active starter, you can either purchase one online or you can watch this video right here. I'm also linking it in the description box below this video. And then you can come back to this video, because this video is about how to maintain your sourdough starter without feedings and discards. However, again, we need to have a sourdough starter. And this method works for any sourdough starter. You can convert whatever your sourdough starter you already have or you bought or were given. So it really doesn't matter where you got your sourdough starter to use my method. Actually, I have two slightly different methods and I'm going to share both with you. For the first method, all I really do is I take my sourdough starter. So there is a bit of a cycle with the sourdough starter, and at some point in this cycle I will have to enter the cycle. So if I'm starting at a point that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to you right now, just keep watching, because I will come back full circle and then at some point it will make sense. Also, I do have a printable PDF that you can download and that helps you visualize this cycle. And again, the link for the PDF is in the description box below this video. So the night before I want to bake, I take my sourdough starter out of the refrigerator. I keep my sourdough starters in the refrigerator all the time. They don't live in my counter, which is one of the reasons why I don't have to do feedings or discards. And then all I do is, you can see that it is very dry. It has a lot of flour on top, so it's not your liquidy, runny sourdough starter that you may have been seeing. So all I do then is I add some water, and I'm the queen of eyeballing, so I am not giving you exact measurements because I don't know how much sourdough starter you have and how much flour you have in there. However, you stir it up, and the more often you do it, the more you get a feel for it. And you stir it up with a fork and you're going for a thick pancake-like batter consistency. Then I leave my sourdough starter with the water in it on my counter. I usually tuck it back here, and I don't usually put on a lid. And I get this question all the time. Do you leave it on the counter? Yes, I do. And you do not have to cover it. However, you can. The reason I don't cover it is because I have these very airtight lids here with these jars. They work perfect for storing in between. I just don't want any gases to build up and then get this loud pop when I open it. If you do have a lid that you can put on very loosely, you can perfectly use that, or you can use a towel or a beeswax wrap. And it doesn't really matter. All I want to do is keep it from completely drying out and from anything flying into it. The next morning, pretty early in the morning, whenever I get up, 7, 8 o'clock or something like that, I check my sourdough starter, and this is what it looks like. So you can see that overnight it has become active. And then I bake with it. For this purpose, I'm showing you how I make my whole grain sourdough bread. It's a very typical European, actually German style, dense whole grain sourdough bread. And I dump my entire sourdough starter into the freshly ground grains. And I often use einkorn, spelt, and rye. And dump it all in there, and then mix up my dough and let my dough rise. So yes, at this point, I have no sourdough starter left. All that I have is the jar that I'm not cleaning. I'm just leaving as it is, but I tighten on the lid so it doesn't get all dried out. around the middle of the day, whenever that is, whenever I get home, whenever I have time, and you can see that it's very flexible here, I check on my bread and the bread dough has slightly risen. And this is normal, especially for the very dense whole grain sourdough bread, that you will not see a lot of rise during the first fermentation or proofing time. And then I take out some sourdough starter. Sometimes I say golf ball size, well, maybe a 1/4 cup or something like that. And I put that into this jar, and then I add a lot of flour. I basically want to make it really dry and really stiff. And then I pour some more flour on top. I cover it with a layer of flour, close my lid, and then it goes back into the refrigerator. And for this reason, because this is my whole grain sourdough starter, I keep 2 sourdough starters because I also bake a lighter, more artisan style bread, and I don't want the whole grains in there necessarily, so I have a purely white sourdough starter and a whole grain sourdough starter, and they both live in my refrigerator. People ask me, how long can you keep it in there? I have successfully kept it in there for 6 weeks. After then, it gets a little bit pungent. So actually, I don't touch it in between. I don't do anything to it in between. I just leave it in the back of my refrigerator. After 6 weeks, I find that often it gets a little pungent. So often what I do is, if I find that, let's say I haven't been baking and then we went on vacation and I just didn't have time, or for whatever reason, then I take out a little bit and I might actually do one quick feeding and maybe a discard. So I take out just a little bit, discard the rest, and add some flour and water to it, let it reactivate on the counter, and then I bake with it, and then I continue on with my cycle. Before I'm going to share my slightly different second sourdough method, I want to introduce you to my online sourdough course, because at this point a lot of people are like, I'm so overwhelmed, my breads don't rise, I don't know what to do, I feel like I'm a complete beginner and I'm so lost. And if that is you, with you in mind, I have created this online sourdough course. It has 21 video lessons that you can watch and replay at your own leisure. You'll have lifetime access. You get 10 printable PDFs. You get a lot of sourdough recipes. And best of all, if you ever have any question, I have a private Facebook group. You can post your question. You can even upload pictures, because here on YouTube, you can't upload pictures. So it's really hard for me to give you more personalized attention. And also, I only have so much time in a day. And as much as I try to respond to all the comments and reply and answer all your questions, I just don't have the time. However, in my private Facebook group, I will give you my personal attention, and you can share recipes and ideas and questions with other students in the sourdough course. And the link for the sourdough course, of course, is right here and in the box below this video. Now on to method number 2. What you can do is you can use a bigger jar, bigger than this, and put a lot of sourdough starter in there. I would say anywhere from 1 to 2 cups. Add a lot of flour to it. I can't tell you right now how many, but probably somewhere between 2 or 3 cups is my guess right now. Make it into a very stiff, dry mass, if you will, and put it in the refrigerator. Now, if you want to bake, and this is again the night before you want to bake, you take out just a little bit of your sourdough starter and put it in another jar, add a little bit more flour, add a little bit more water, and let it sit. It may need more than 8 hours. It may need maybe 12 or 24 hours to come to life, and you'll see that there's bubbles on it, and I always like to tap on the bottom, and it makes a hollow sound, and it smells pleasantly sour. So all the hallmarks of an active ripe sourdough starter. And then you can use the entire sourdough starter for your recipes, for your sweet recipes, or for your breads. And obviously over time, this amount of sourdough starter that you have in the refrigerator will decrease. So at some point you're going to have to, I always like to say, prop it up again, make a lot more, make a bigger batch, and then continue that cycle. And if you're wondering what you can do with this method with your sourdough starter, I have an entire playlist right here where I'm showing you lots of bread recipes and sweet recipes. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.